there are 7 seats up front. If anybody's feeling brave and wants to take one of them. 6 seats up front. If anybody wants to take one of them. I'm so going down this court. It's going to happen. I just know it. That's how I sit there. Okay, so hello. My name is Jim Lane. I am Vice President of User Experience at Virtru, which is a privacy company. I'll be talking a lot about Virtru tonight. And I thought I'd come in and share. This is the beginning, and it's also at the end. My Twitter handle is Jim Lane NoVA, and my email address is. My email address is jlane@virtru.com if anybody wants to get a hold of me for free. I don't know if we're going to do the looking thing or not, but I'll say up front because I know I'll forget by the time I get to the end. Is I'm looking for a visual design intern this summer. We're also doing a product research intern with some awesome people. We're still looking for visual design interns though, so if anybody knows any folks, heavy graphic design, visual design stuff, not UX so much, I'd love to talk to you, pick me up, or drop me in there. So, let's talk about. There we go. So, Virtru is a data protection company focusing really heavily on privacy. It was founded by 2 brothers, John and Will Ackerley, both coming out of government, especially Will coming out of government work with the NSA for a number of years. And while he was there, actually founded the Open Standard TDF. I won't get into that tonight much, but that's where this all kind of started. And the 2 of them founded Virtru around the idea that privacy should be available to everyone, that data should be able to be freely exchanged, freely shared. In fact, privacy is not about hiding things and keeping them inside. Privacy is actually about enabling collaboration, enabling sharing. So if data is protected, you can do really cool things. And I'll circle around back to that here. And this is their favorite quote. It's in every one of their books. They're pretty cool. So I'm going to talk about 2 things this evening. It's kind of a 2-part. The first is about the work I've done growing UX as a discipline at Virtru, which is kind of for me, it was a pretty unique experience. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And so the first half is going to be about growing that, and the second half is going to be about some of the things we're thinking about when it comes to security and privacy and how UX can apply those ideas, some of the challenges we're kind of chewing on. And a lot of this is preliminary. I've been there for about 5 months. My team's been there for about 4 months. I'll get to that in a second. We're still a relatively new team, and so you're hearing about this really as it's happening in real time. Some of these things are in progress, and some are coming soon, and some have happened in the last couple of months. So you're getting it hot off the press. So let me tell a story. I was at an Envision leadership dinner in DC about third day. It's my third day at work, and I'm sitting at a table with a bunch of other design leaders, managers, types, and we're all kind of sharing our stories and pitching about our teams. And I said, yeah, I've been there for like 3 days. And they said, well, what happened? I said, well, I was in US Consulting talking to John Ackerley, who was one of the 2 founders, and just helping them think about how do we hire a design leader, how do we establish design work. And he said, hey, why don't we just hire you? Why don't you come in? We don't have a team, we don't have the tools, we don't have the process. So you come in and just figure it all out and just like make everything awesome. Hire whoever you need, do what, and I'm telling the table, they're like, this never happens. This is a really cool opportunity to come in. This is not a new company. Virtru's been around for about 6 years. So, and I'll tell you a little about the products a little bit later, but coming in and saying, wow, we really don't have a UX team, we really don't have a UX process. That's a really neat opportunity to come in and establish. And so that's where I was kind of starting, was, okay, well, we're going to kind of start from nothing. So I show this sometimes when I'm talking to my team or other teams. I like to think of UX this way. You come into an organization and say, okay, kind of, where are we at here? How advanced is user experience in this organization? And this is there's lots of these. This happens to be Nielsen Norman's maturity model. It's been around for eons. And the idea is, where does UX stand, right? If worst possible case is, brand new company, 5 guys in the garage, couldn't give a crap about design, don't even know what the user is or whatever. All the way over here to where this is a user-driven organization. The entire organization is completely centered around customers and users, which almost never happens for various reasons. But the idea is that you want to aspire to be as close to this as you can get. So you go, okay, well, I'm coming in, and they've obviously got a budget. How do I come in and then kind of take this organization? This takes years. At AddThis, when we kind of did something similar with the team there, it took 4 to 6 years to move up here. But it didn't have that kind of time. So let's talk about it. The first thing was I didn't have a team. The very first thing I had to do was find a team and figure out what we would need. So really, broadly speaking, at Virtru, there are privacy products that focus on email, products that focus on files. There are management interfaces, there's a dashboard, and account management, and that kind of stuff, web interfaces. And then we also have mobile apps. There's a lot of products here. Two browser extensions, a PC plugin, 2 mobile apps, a web application, and then a bunch of other ancillary products and stuff. That's a lot of interfaces and a lot of different platforms, and no UX team. So I always like to go back to this one and try to get it's a new diagram. But to think about, I use this sometimes to talk about how broad a discipline UX is. Like we were all raising our hands earlier. There's lots of different pieces to when we talk about UX and interaction design and interface design and visual design and whatever we're calling ourselves this week. Trying to figure out, like, what am I looking for? And I decided to go for 4 relatively senior interaction designers with pretty broad skill sets. And fortunately, and this is the point I'm making, all of you are here tonight, which is great, is like, leverage your network. One guy previously worked for me and is in this group. One guy I've known from AOL days and was also in this group. One guy found out about the position because he was in this group. And a 4th guy, I just got damn lucky. Actually, that was the 4th thing. So there was a guy kind of in the background doing some things. We grabbed him. Got really, really fortunate. But I can't emphasize enough. All the people you're meeting at events like this, all the people connecting to you on LinkedIn that you're carefully curating, is really, really important. Because something when you're running your own team, or you're running your team right now, being able to find great talent and knowing what to look for and who to ask is awesome. And I was very, very fortunate to find a really strong team. So then, process. Now, I'm going to preface all this with, this all had to happen super fast. So don't take anything up here I'm going to say is Bible, but I'm going to do the best I can. So when I think about user experience, right? So it's an agile shop. We've got about, I'm going to say 8 or 10 squads. So more squads than designers, obviously. We've got about, I'm going to say 70 or 80 engineers and 4 UXers. Now, not all of those engineers are working on customer-facing, front-end work, but lots of engineers. And so, identify 4 senior UXers and myself. I usually think about work this way, really at a really high level. Sometimes there's tasks that we can work in this sprint, relatively straight ahead. We'll plan at the beginning of the sprint, we'll define it, get together, jam on it, get it done. Sometimes we sprint ahead, and then sometimes we peel off just big projects that we need research, we need discovery, we need ideation, prototyping, whatever. And they may end up agile in the sprint later, and they might not. Maybe they'll live, maybe they won't. But I found this kind of visual language helpful when I'm talking to engineering teams who are thinking in terms of agile and thinking in terms of sprints, and I'm kind of putting it in their language of how they think about breaking up work, while at the same time kind of acknowledging that design doesn't always fit into agile perfectly. That doesn't mean that we can't work iteratively, but it has to be kind of a dance, if you will. And then ultimately try to get at a process that actually is pretty iterative. Sometimes we do research if it's necessary. Sometimes we do prototyping if it's necessary. Usually that means we're going to work and iterate on that. We're doing design work and iterating. We're doing development and we're iterating. We're measuring things. We're releasing, iterating. In a perfect world, we're iterating a lot. If you're working at a company that says it's agile and you're not iterating, it's probably not agile. But And again, this idea of using data and working with teams is language that's helped us communicate really closely with a very technical organization. So that was useful, at least in this situation. And for its work, this is our tool set at Virtru. And project planning, our marketing team is doing their own dang thing with Asana. We're using ProdPad to establish our product roadmaps, Jira tickets. 3 things that I called out, testing the blogs. Wiki. One of the things I tried to do as quick as I could was establish transparency. It's a new team, it's a new discipline, and everyone's saying, hey, we just spent a ton of our Series B funding on this UX team thing. What do we have to show for it, right? And so, like, looking for opportunities to be transparent and provide those artifacts to the organization, present them, document them, and here they are, helps a lot with opening those lines of communication. So as soon as we added wiki, I'm jumping all over that. This is a communication tool. Envision. How many people use Envision? Cool. Sketch and Envision work really well together. We like that combo a lot. One thing that was really cool. So my previous job, also relatively small company, 100-ish people. The pricing for Envision was kind of brutal. Really, I mean, it's kind of brutal, right? The idea is you want everyone to be involved, but the pricing is tough, right? Well, right after I started, I found that Envision they changed their prices to enterprise, like a flat rate, $6 grand a year for the whole organization, which is freaking awesome. Now, don't quote me on that number. They may have changed it. Who knows? They may put something different. The idea was, literally everyone in the organization can be participating in prototypes, in testing, providing feedback, annotating. I can share anything with anyone in the company. I don't have to worry about, oh shit, do I have to see that to buy or whatever. If Envision turned you off a year or two ago because of the pricing, you may want to check them out because I think they finally kind of got it. But yeah, that was not so good. And then we also use now. How many folks know about Abstract? You. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a second. But that's a really cool tool. This was in place but wasn't getting used when we got there. Abstract is basically Git for design. So you can check sketch files in and out and do version control for design files. And when you're trying to do templates and trying to do, starting to work on a design system, you really got to think about version control and things go to hell really quickly. And so that's something that, and I'll talk about that more in a second, because right after evaluation. So getting great people, setting up some process. Now the problem was we have all these products. Chrome extension, O365 extension, PC for Virtru PC plugin, web app, and all this stuff was developed without style guidelines or, in a lot of cases, a lot of UX help. And so the first thing we wanted to do was take a look and say, okay, well, all right, everybody, take your respective products, and we're going to do heuristic evaluations on everything, so we can at least identify the most serious issues we've got in front of us. So, does anybody not know what a heuristic evaluation is? 2 people. Okay. Super fast version. I'm going to butcher this for the diehards in the audience. But the idea is heuristics are basically rules of thumb. An example is a system ought to tell you what it's doing, or if I make a mistake, I ought to be able to get back from it. And so what you do is you take a look at the interface, you take these kind of best practices, rules of thumb, you evaluate each feature against those best practices, and in cases where it breaks it, you say this breaks this best practice, here's how severe it is, here's how many people are affected by it, and therefore we prioritize and say, great, that should probably get ticketed. That's preventing everyone from being able to log in. That's not so good, right? And you can find some really egregious stuff, just kind of common sense with the interface. Now, I just radically simplified that, but it's a really, really powerful tool to really quickly get at the worst things that need to get addressed first. And by the way, the severity rankings that I use are basically the user is prevented from completing the task completely, and I call that rage quit. The user is pretty heavily blocked from being able to do. I mean, maybe they can figure it out. There's no way they're going to. That's like severe anger. It's annoying. You'll probably be able to get to it, but it's frustrating, and you put enough of those together, they're really going to get pissed off. and then just kind of cosmetic, this isn't so bad, those one of the the idea is you want to get the most of your stuff and identify and get it to do. So that was the first thing we did. And I'm going to come back to a limitation of this in a little bit in the security space. And then the next thing, we're in the middle of working on this, is, okay, great. We've looked at the products. We've figured out kind of what are the first things we want to work on. Now, what about the rest of the experience? When someone comes, and so you think about the kinds of users at Virtru, there are people that buy us, and I'll talk more about them later. There are administrators. So I work at this company. I'm the IT administrator. I'm going to roll out Virtru to everyone using G Suite in my organization. Now they're all going to have the security software suddenly appear in their Gmail. And now they can send encrypted messages for whatever reason. And then there's the people that receive those messages, who may not be part of the company at all. I can send an encrypted email to someone, they get this message and it's encrypted. So, okay, what do I do with this? Right? Interesting problem. So now, what's that whole experience? So for someone who suddenly gets provisioned this software, from the moment they get an email from their administrator saying, hey, we've got Virtru now, to figuring out what it is, installing it, starting to use it, needing to get help, getting support, sharing it with a friend, that whole journey is kind of the next thing we wanted to kind of start to figure out. We're starting with personas. So who are each of those kinds of users? Then do customer journeys, each of those. And then this is really cool. So I've talked about service blueprints to a couple different groups. Is anybody not familiar with them? Do this super fast version. And I'll do questions at the end for any of this stuff. So the cool thing about service blueprints is they start with a persona, they start with a customer journey. Then instead of just looking at the journey of the customer, they do this idea of front stage, backstage. It looks at what are the interactions with the brand that are visible to the customer. So I'm here, I'm trying to do something, and we send you an email, or we offer you a web page. They send you a text or something, right? So these are interactions where they call us, and we have a chat or something. Right? So these are things that are visible to the customer. And then these things backstage are the things that the customer doesn't see. Their data is collected. Their data goes into Salesforce. Salesforce sends it to Zendesk. Zendesk is whatever happens, right? And so these processes back here are invisible, but they can have profound impact on the customer. So for instance, hey, I collected your data here in Salesforce. It sat in there. It didn't go to Zendesk. Zendesk sends you an email. I ought to know what your name and your email address is and says, hello, user, or whatever. Right? And so that was an opportunity to make the experience better by making systems be able to talk to each other. So that's a really cool thing about this approach is that it looks at the whole experience, top to bottom. So we're starting with personas, with the customer journeys, and then this year we'll dig into this kind of service blueprint. This is also in this and Norman. You get all this cool stuff there. It's a neat tool. Takes some work, but I think it's worth the effort. So, great people, great process. Done some evaluation. That continues. Now we need some guidelines because we're all over the place. And so, how do we start to reel in the user experience and the design across all these products? So, first things first, master sketch templates, get abstracts set up, start making sure that we have master sketches, we check those in and out. People like me who are bad actors and don't like do the abstract thing as well as the guys on my team, and so I get slapped on this. Reel those guys in, make them use the tool correctly. Because it's interesting psychology, right? You're in a hurry, the CEO just said, hey, can you whip up a screen here that looks like that other screen? Can you just grab that and change a couple things for me, and I need it in 10 minutes, please? Well, I gotta check it out, abstract, and I got to, it's like, so it's a process thing to kind of get used to and teach ourselves how to use the tool, but it's incredibly powerful if you have full version control over all of your master templates and sketch. And then, once we start figuring out all those design things, then we'll put them into the system. But before I go, here's an interesting challenge, quick anecdote. About a month before I started, and I was kind of doing some consulting with Virtru, and the CEO said, yeah, I have hired this agency in San Francisco called TM. Great guys, super talented, love it. And he said, yeah, because I want them to like thinking about this UX stuff too. So we've been partnering with TM literally through to the end of this month. We're going to wrap up the first phase this month. And they've they've been redesigning the core product experience while we're figuring out all this style stuff. So what's been really interesting challenge, like don't recommend this, is figuring out, okay, here's what it is, which doesn't really follow anything. Here's this work, giving direction to an agency team, while framing, okay, they're making these decisions, strictly speaking, in Gmail and this web interface, but how can I extrapolate that out to 365, PC, PC Outlook? Can I reuse these components? If these became a design system, could it be reusable? And I'll give you a specific example. There was a menu of our security options, right? It could fly out as a hover, it could drop down, it could be in a sidebar. And when we sat down and did the analysis, we realized the one component that was global across all the platforms we were working in was we could always draw a sidebar. So from a practical consideration point of view, if we want to create kind of cohesive experience across our tools, that ended up being the best affordance that we could use kind of universally, knowing that later it was going to become a component that we needed to be able to reuse. It's a challenge, but we have this amazingly talented design team to pull from, and so as we put together these templates and work with them, we're exchanging files back and forth, exchanging sketch stuff, discussing guidelines, fonts, colors, components, and then eventually, as we start to unify all that, when it comes time to actually scale this out, both across all the other product interfaces, is when we start working with the the engineering team using Storybook to build that then into a design system. So the design system we're working on right now is going to be in two parts. Master sketch files checked into abstract, following a set of guidelines we're documenting. And then on the component side, Storybook, so that there will be a one-to-one correspondence between JavaScript components in Storybook and symbol library, symbol components in Sketch that are checked into abstract. So it's an interesting endeavor. Now, InVision has they've introduced 4 additional class. The design system component of their platform. We haven't used that, but the design system is something we're thinking about working on, and we're looking at options. InVision does have a design system component to their product offering. But for us, we had already set the organization to Slack and if we press that, we would say, oh, by the way, can we have this too? And so we're focusing on doing it in Storybook. Any quick questions about that? I kind of blew through that really fast. Yeah. 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 What I did was, and this is just kind of, again, a little bit of guerrilla warfare here. I'm pretty sure there's products and things out there you can use that sort of thing. What I did was I came up with a template and did a training session so that everyone was using the same heuristic measurements, the same severity. We all kind of agreed to the same severity ratings. We weren't worried too much about prioritization. And then each product had its own. It was honestly just giving a Google Docs so that we could share and review each other's stuff and ask questions and have comments and things. And then literally it's just all. Then you look at the critical stuff first. And that's the super bare bones way of doing it. I'm sure there's these applications out there that will help with that, but that was the easiest capacity. Any other questions before I go forward? Yeah. Great question. So the question for the internet is how do you get people to think in terms of a design system? So having the discipline to have the sketch master templates and things checked into abstract is already kind of, and everything's in symbol libraries, right? So nothing's one-off as much as possible. Everything are representations of symbols. You're familiar with that, the sketch. And so you already have the building blocks in place. So I think in some ways, it's for the designers, it's having that framework in place kind of keeps you honest, if you will, because if you start breaking things, you're going to get yelled at because it's breaking. When you check it back in, you're breaking it for everyone. The component side we haven't gotten to yet, but what's interesting, the last hackathon, we just had our first hackathon at Virtru. And actually one of the hackathon projects was standing up an instance of Storybook, which we were really excited to see because they were already componentizing things. And so as we bring these design guidelines in, as we nail those down actually this month with GM, then we'll translate those into the libraries, update the master templates, and then start doing a review of all the components. The big job we have in front of us is going to be going through all the other products and the other platforms and figure out when do we follow Virtru guidelines and when do I follow Outlook, or when do I follow Gmail, or when do I follow whatever the platform is, mobile. Mobile we want more control of. And that's interesting, like kind of making rules about when do I follow Microsoft conventions versus when do we do our own. Roughly speaking, what we kind of decided was when I'm inserting directly into Microsoft's interface, like into the ribbon, I'm going to follow their convention. When we're drawing a surface that's our own, we're going to follow ours. That's kind of all rough heuristic, but I'm sure we'll learn more as we go. So, we'll do one more, then I'll go forward. Sure. Any user search engine process? User research, yes. I would just, so far research at Virtru has been, so lots of customer voice. There's no shortage of customer voice at Virtru. It's very heavily interview oriented, but it's been largely driven by product. And so it's been lots of customer conversations, lots of CS support, sales conversations with customers. So lots of feedback, not really a shortage of feedback. And tons of data. One of the first things, one of the other job descriptions I wrote when I started this was data analyst. Just going to text someone who thinks that they do job. Yeah, there you go. Hi, just died, Jack. He's fantastic. And so digging into the data and really organizing our dashboards and metrics and really understand that. As far as research goes, not a lot so far. In fact, one of our goals, you'll see at the end where I say, these are our objectives for the coming year. One of those is we started a user testing calendar. And so we're prioritizing research about what's blocking projects. And doing a lot more of it using Applause, usetesting.com, and then stuff. Yeah. What's happening is it's great to have conversations, get lots of qualitative feedback, but we have to test the task to see completion, right? So it's great to say you like it, but you actually do it. So, okay. So, and then, here I am. Like I was just saying. So, these are the big things we're working on this year, and then I'm going to segue kind of into the more privacy security stuff. So, design system, big thing for us this year. We have to do this. We can't scale on multiple platforms and web interfaces without coming up with a standardized way of approaching this stuff. Plus also throwing mobile apps as well, and things just get kind of crazy. And then taking that look and feel across all of our products. And then really doing more prototyping, more user testing, to your point, and connecting with our customers, really bringing them front and center. It's not that they're not there. I would describe it as, the way I've talked about it in the meetings is, it's not that the customer's not present, but we haven't pulled them to the center because we haven't operationalized their voice. Like, there has to be a way for us to take what they're saying and what we're learning from them, and then translating that into how do I make this product better, how do I make this experience more connected and more unified. And that's really exciting, and going to help the whole team. And then reaching out to the design community like this, right? And then digging into some really specific user experience challenges, which I'm going to make the second half of my talk here. But I will say this. This year, as we pull all this stuff together, and I can't talk about all of it yet, but really touching all of our products and taking the web experience and tying all this stuff together and looking at the whole journey and the emails and support and CS and everything else that's going on. It's a tremendous opportunity for UX to say, how can I help the organization come together and provide a better experience for our customers? I can't stress enough, to be perceived in a strategic position in an organization is so important to what we do. It's not about, hey, here's the design you asked for. It's about help. I understand the business objectives we're trying to accomplish. Here is how we can tie back to that. And I'll share one last story and I'll go on. we're getting too close to finishing up the OKR process for the company. And what I love about it, we did this at AddThis as well, is we established these are the business goals for the company for the year. Each team then said, these are our objectives. We did the OKR for the goals. And then here's each team's goals and how each team's goals map up to each of the business goals. And then for each individual on my team, what are the specific things they're doing by quarter that are then mapping up to the team's objectives, which map up to the business goals. Which sounds like a no-brainer, but it's actually really hard to do. It takes a lot of work to get that right and have them be measurable and smart and all that sort of stuff. But it is so incredibly powerful when you can go to each person on your team and know that each of them understand how their work each day maps up to the team being successful, them being successful, and the company being successful. It's really, really powerful for a team feeling happy and feeling empowered. So I would share that just as an anecdote. So let's talk about privacy and data protection. So let me start with how do customers think about data protection? So it's actually a really interesting question of why people want to protect data. And you think it's like, well, because it should be protected, right? So let's start with what is data protection, right? Or at least this is how Virtru thinks about data protection, right? Your data should be protected wherever it goes. This is not a small thing. When you think about mobile, desktop, multiple systems, multiple devices, all the different things you log into and log out of and sign into and use Facebook to connect and everything else, saying that your data that you care about is protected anywhere you go is fundamental and really, really hard. And also, Google and Amazon and Microsoft shouldn't be able to access your data. Even if you're using their platforms, they shouldn't be able to access it, right? Again, easier said than done. That's their whole businesses are on collecting data, right? Data protection is really awesome when no prior relationship is required, right? So if I can share something to you, I can encrypt something, give it to you, and you can unencrypt it. And we didn't have to previously exchange keys or codes or secret passwords or anything. It just works. Again, really hard, but really fundamental because maybe I need to send something to you and we've never talked before. And if we've never established how this is going to work, it's not going to work unless it doesn't need any of those things. And then once I do that, I want to have full control over it. I want to be able to revoke it. Like, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to send that to you. Oh, shoot, that data's changed. Or, oh, shoot, you're in Russia. I don't want you to have that. I want to pull that back. But you can't do that. Once it's out there, it's gone. And then, where did it go? I want to be able to track it. I want to be able to see, if I'm an IT administrator and I'm in charge of protecting our data, I want to know who shared what, where did it go, who can see it. I want to be able to revoke it, pull it back, or else I lose my job. Right? And so, okay, that's what data protection is. Let's talk about encryption. So, I am not an engineer. So if anyone here is just like sitting going, yeah, I'll do my best. So, Virtru uses what's called a split key architecture for encryption. And what that means, essentially, is when you encrypt something, there's two pieces, there's two keys. There's a key associated with the content, and then a second key. So that if you send that through, let's say, Google, one key is with us, one key, and then the content itself is going through Google. So if Google can't open it, we can't open it. And then when it gets to its destination, the two keys come together, it's unencrypted, you can open it, all is well with communication. And it's, I wildly simplify how encryption works there, but essentially, that's really kind of what there is to it, right? I install a Gmail browser extension. So I go into Gmail, I say I'm going to compose an email. I can turn on Virtru protection. That automatically encrypts both the message and any attachments I attach. I can apply some interesting extra things like, I'm going to watermark the attachment. So I want this to expire in 2 days. Or some features like that. I send it off. Again, it's encrypted, it's split, two keys. The two keys go off, we hold on to one. The other goes with the content, they come back together. by the person who's on the policy associated with the encrypted message. So if I send it to you, only you can open it. If you forward it, we add whoever you forward it to the policy, and now they can open it as well. But someone walking up to the computer would have to authenticate and we say, sorry, you don't have to see that. Does that make sense? Again, glossing over a lot of technical detail, but generally speaking, that's how it works. And they say that because that's happening. So Gmail, we have a plugin for Drive, so you can encrypt files in Google Drive, Microsoft, so on and so forth, and NoVA. So why? Going back to the why question. Why do companies want to protect information? And there's some really interesting nuance here. So obviously, hey, I've got sensitive information. If my employees send this out somewhere, I want to make sure that it's protected. Sure. There's also protection within an organization where I'm going to send this to certain parts of the organization. I want to make sure no one in the organization shouldn't see this has access to it. There's organizations like entertainment who are guarding scripts like Game of Thrones. All the assets around the latest production season of Game of Thrones, they want to protect that stuff and make sure that it's encrypted so that even if it gets outside, nobody can open it up. So there's the protection of data, but there's also some interesting nuances. One is a lot of healthcare organizations and financial organizations have really strict regulatory requirements. They have to HIPAA requirements, other regulatory requirements. They have to check that box and say, our data is encrypted in these ways, and they have to have that or else they're in serious trouble. And so for them, yes, there's the protection of the data, but they also have to worry about the regulatory requirements as well. And then there's some other reasons. My favorite one being I don't want to get fired. There's some interesting nuance as to why people choose to protect things. So then that brings us to how do you actually evaluate it? So we talked about heuristic evaluation, right? And that's great for kind of saying, is this interface usable? And it's a great basic common sense UX piece. But that leaves out an interesting component. So there's an interesting problem with security. So usability, how do you measure if something's secure? So we talked about usability, right? Oh, is it effective? Am I satisfied? Is it accurate? Efficient? Do all those yes things. That's great. But how do you say something's secure? Well, yeah. Is there an appropriate enough amount of attention from the user on the thing that you're supposed to be paying attention to? Is there a proper vigilance to the importance of the information? Is there a conditioning component to make sure that, when I use this, I remember I've got to do the security thing, right? Am I motivated? Do I care? Do I actually feel like if I don't protect information I ought to be protecting, I'm going to be in serious trouble? And then there's kind of like the social context of, is the company just kind of like, it protects that, or is the company like, no, every single person's organization is responsible for the protection of data in this company, right? And these can kind of be at odds with each other, right? As designers, we want to make it as easy as possible to use, but I need to get in your way. I need to actually say, hey, stop what you're doing. I need you to think for a moment about whether you should do this or not. And if you're just trying to do your email, just trying to share your files. So there's kind of a tension between ease of use and security. But what they kind of have in common, and this is kind of like that common ground we all share, is can I remember I need to do this, and do I have the means so I know what I need to do when I need to do it? And both by ease of use and attention to security, it can kind of become that area of how do I get in your way in a really clever way and remind you to do the thing you know you ought to do. And it's an interesting design problem. It's just not just about making things easy. This is a model I found. It's the same paper, 2010 paper, about evaluating usability and security. I thought it was really interesting, just to show that kind of oppositeness, right? I'm evaluating usability by figuring out the things that are both internal and externally getting in the way of the user. I'm evaluating security by the things that are actually motivating me to be bad, and then making recommendations between the two of them of like, how can I make this easier while simultaneously making it harder so that you do the right thing? Yeah, kind of interesting, right? So I thought what I'd do is take a look at a couple of my own little model here. So so bear with me. Let's start with the use case. Sally and Bob. So Sally works at a government contractor. Bob is a vendor. Sally needs to send an RFP, it's pretty sensitive, to Bob. These are totally not stock images, they're real people. I swear. They're stock images. So let's talk. And when you see this, you guys are going to recognize the example. So first of all, basics, right? Can I actually send and share and receive encrypted messages, right? Bare bones. Is it just usable? Can I do it, right? So okay, think about that. Then, is it there when I need it? So here's an interesting problem. If I have to go to some website to apply protection and it's not actually where I'm doing it, am I really going to do it? You know? And that's why we've focused so much on Gmail, Gmail plugin, a browser extension, or Outlook plugin, and so on. So be where the users that heard the pave the cow paths, kind of go where they are, and then does this get better as I use it? Does it get smarter as I use it? Does it learn how I do things? And then ultimately, do I feel confident and safe for this kind of self-fulfillment? And this is really tricky. Like again, it's that tightrope walk between enough but not too much. So, and I won't get into this, but you guys have seen this before, right? And how do you habituate? Behaviors? This is the hooked diagram of like creating habitual actions. So here's how so this is the little model I said. Okay, so I'm going to compose an email, or I'm going to upload a file, and then I'm going to send and I'm going to share. And really, fantastic. I'll go faster. There's an opportunity here in between hitting that send button to say I could offer you security, I could suggest you use security, I can force you to use security, I can warn you. So for instance, I go to try to hit send, and we say, oh, hey, by the way, you put an IP address and some other stuff in here, and according to HIPAA, you actually need to encrypt this message, and then have you encrypt the message. Or, well, something else we do is we'll encrypt it before you even tell you, which presents its own problems. So, okay, great. So now I send it, and what happens today is, I'll tell you a little anecdote. We have this thing called a gateway. So your company can set it up, you go to send messages, and when you send them, they just automatically get encrypted. So you don't know. You send a message thinking your friend's getting a and they're going to get an encrypted message. It's an interesting problem. The user doesn't know it was encrypted. So their friend calls them and saying, what the heck is this encrypted? What am I supposed to do with this? Like, what do you mean it's encrypted? I just sent you an email. So there's an opportunity here to kind of let folks know that things are happening, kind of summarize, hey, by the way, this encrypted those pretty attachments for you. You're welcome. And then when the receiver receives it, hey, how do I let you know that you actually read it? And you can do this. You can let folks know when messages are read, when they're forwarded, who forwarded them. I can revoke the forward. I can see everywhere it went because those things are encrypted. That wrapper around them also allows us to track messages. And that's really powerful for IT administrators and security companies. Yeah. The reader? Excuse me. It's tell you right there that it's encrypted and protected by Virtru, and we do provide, hey, if I don't know what this is or how this works, here's a way to find out. But generally speaking, yeah, the tracking and auditing is really big. For companies protecting all of this data, they need to know who is sending information, who has to be forwarded outside the company, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And then, by the way, when you're building this kind of flow, not only are we thinking about where can I notify you and help you know when to apply protection and let you know what's happening and alert you when things are happening, this is also a great way to build a SaaS interaction flow of, hey, you're using this, you should activate your account. Hey, you activate your account, you might want to try this other feature. And so as we're designing these interactions, there's also lots of opportunities to promote viral growth, and we're thinking about all those things as well as we kind of build out that interaction phase. And the last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll wrap up, is cognitive models. The interesting thing about security is people think very differently about privacy and security. And I'll use an example. I was on a customer call recently, and quick backstory. The way that we designed our Gmail plugin is that we inject code into it, right? So we have a partnership with Google and to do this for Drive and for Gmail. And the way it was done was is injects the code into the body of the email itself. So it looks like an attachment. It's actually in the message. And that's important because when I reply to the message, that attachment that you can download from the original message is still there. And so the problem this customer was reporting was, yeah, I'm writing a message, I'm attaching an RFP, I'm encrypting it, I'm sending it, my coworker is receiving it, they're downloading the RFP, they're updating it, sending it back, and then I'm downloading the wrong one. I'm downloading the original instead of the new one. And the model in his head was, well, that's not how email works. When replies don't have original attachments, forwards have original attachments. It's like, that's really, really interesting. You kind of had to work to get to it, but yeah, I mean, technically, it was an interesting kind of mental model, like, wow, that kind of isn't how it works. Great point. And so we'll work on that. I'm going to use a simpler example. A folder. I put a file into a folder, I take the file out of the folder. I expect the file to be exactly as it is when I put it in the folder, when I pull it back out, right? Fantastic. Let's call that a protected folder or a secure folder. And I put something into the folder, and now it's encrypted, and it's got a watermark, it's got all this cool stuff, right? Super safe, right? Now I pull it out of the folder. What happens? Does it act like an engine, like zip archive, and you drag it over and it turns it into an archive? Or do I pull it out? Is it now not protected anymore? You kind of think, I kind of want to keep it to be protected, but then it doesn't work out the folder. This is a really tiny little example, but as we're designing through privacy and security, we're like really thinking about how do people think about not just its security itself, but the elements of it and how all these pieces are put together. So, as we think about all these things, we're working through some really interesting interaction problems. And I'll share a kind of crazy one with you that we talk a lot about in events, so for that I'll show you. Imagine 5 cancer researchers working for 5 different companies who each have data that is proprietary to their organization and also contains patient data that's protected by HIPAA. These 5 cancer researchers want to get together, bring that data together, and actually work together and collaborate on research. But the problem is they can't expose each other's proprietary data to each other, and they can never expose patient data at all. How do you do that? And so some of the really interesting challenges we're working on is how do you encrypt and protect data in a way, and using open standards and developing that not just keep data private, but actually promote collaboration, promote sharing, promote really interesting challenges and problems that are easier to tackle when you can actually ensure that no one's seeing the data that should be seen. So I'm going to wrap there. Covered a ton of ground. Any questions I can answer? Please with that. Yeah.
So you said the company's 6 years old?
About 6 years old.
6 years old, and your UXPA is 6 months old?
Well, I've been there 5 months or so, and they've been there 4-ish or so.
You just say it's a lot.
Yes.
So it was built by developers.
There was a UX person as part of the founding team, so there was some original design. And there's some things that were actually pretty cool, like the whole point about having to deal with expertise. There's some cool stuff there, but yeah, it's pretty.
So given that gap,
yep.
What, I know this is speculative,
sure.
But what do you think was lost by not starting with the UX? What do you think could have happened? So just kind of for new startups who are thinking, oh, I don't need that design stuff. What are they using?
Yeah. I think that there are a couple things. First, there's elements to interactions that, taken from a customer-centric perspective, could have been avoided if the user had been more involved. Obviously, things have been developed in Angular that were ported to React to make them more scalable. If you think about modular design and that sort of thing. And so if you do all that stuff from the beginning, it's much easier than trying to go back and then retrofit everything, which is very, very expensive. But you have to do it to scale. And so the longer you put off figuring that stuff out, the more expensive it is to fix it. And eventually, to scale, you're going to have to fix it at some point. The longer you put it off, the more expensive it is. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back. Yep. Yep. So the question is, how engaged is my team with the Scrum teams, with those groups? And yeah, stand-ups every day, sprint planning. Now the trick is, each of the designers is working on a functional area. There's more than one team working on that, and so they have to kind of coordinate between the teams and kind of share it between teams. A lot of times, in a perfect world, you have one designer per squad. We only have 4 designers to 8 or 10 squads. But so far it's actually worked really, really well. Also, we created a second floor of space. All engineering, product, and design are all on the same floor, which also helps. Anybody else? Yes.
Do you work with the governance teams at all? Like, because you always end up with that problem that somebody has a phone in their pocket, right? So they take a picture of the email, and if it gets too hard, then they just send it over their personal Gmail. So kind of how do you address that situation?
Maybe it would be a stretch to say we're addressing that specific use case. And actually, when you say governance, I started thinking about design system governance as that is we do have, I don't know if that answers your question or not, we do have a process, a security review process of everything we do in design features, all go through a process of kind of the building trust, evaluating all the security ramifications of everything we do.
Yeah, it's just a consideration when you're designing UX. As soon as you make it too difficult, that's when the user takes out their phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like finding that sweet spot between easy enough, but exactly. Yes. Okay. Are you talking about design system governance? Yeah, I was referring to design system governance. Sorry. And basically, once you put a system like this in place, how do you actually manage it? So I know it's the kind of governance we're talking about. That's the time. Is that if you put a design system in place and you haven't figured out how you're going to manage that and manage changes to it, and hey, someone's going to need for something. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
So you're showing this diagram of like doing something between usability and security.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you've experienced with this team, with this company? Is that something that you believe in? And how do you work around it?
Believe in it, yes. I think that we are, as we work on these products and then work with the CTO, who's also one of the founders, really with that, working through all the security ramifications of the design work we're doing is kind of backing into figuring out that trade-off between security and usability. So it's very much front of mind because we have to think about not just the use cases of the user using it, but also the use cases of, okay, well, what does this mean for when data is being protected where and we have a use chain, and what happens if they do this? And so like there's the use cases of the feature itself and use cases of the security considerations of using the feature. So very much top of mind. And I think, it's one of those things where it's like any other tool, it becomes practice, right, as we get used to the space. Yeah. One more. Yeah, go back. I'm sorry.
So just a quick question. So the product is based around emails, right? So
Emails and files.
Emails and files. So how do you deal with the transition to things like Slack and instant messaging, like Microsoft Teams?
Mm-hmm. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm just letting you know. obviously, any company in our space is thinking about what are the different kinds of data that come in and out of the organization, how do I protect it? Yes. Right. Um, um, yeah, so we've used the vision for some testing so far. And so we haven't done a lot of script user testing yet, but we eventually will be to do so. And I've done it in the past, and it can work really well as long as you're thinking about what the script is and the strings I need and how much interaction there needs to be in order to, and then also you do testing after you have something that's actually in place. So that's always nicer because we have more control over the interface. We're not so limited in the past. Yeah, we haven't tried. I mean, honestly, to be really, really honest, they invested a ton of money in my team and a ton of money in Envision, and so we decided for now we're gonna stick to abstract and Envision just because yeah, so that. Not yet. So we're doing the design side now. The dev side started standing up the JavaScript environment. They have some components over there. We haven't yet got to the point where we kind of go through the inventory process of figuring out, okay, what do we have, what don't we have, what do we want to keep, what do we want to change. That's one of the things we'll be working on this year. I don't believe, and this is actually one of the things like Envision will say what's so great about their system. Although I don't think actually something. I'm not really sure. But that's the problem, right? It's like you're managing the design side, and then there's the JavaScript component side. How do you manage change? And if and until there's a technical connection, it has to be people process. So hey, we've decided blue should be pink. Okay, great. Now the components over here that call it blue have to call pink instead. In a perfect world, it would be automatic. In most cases, it's not. I don't know yet. I would say right now it's not on the immediate horizon. It doesn't mean that we want. If we can find out a cool way to do it. How much time? Where's that? 4 minutes? Couple more? Awesome. Nice. So the question is actually repeating the question. The question is, how do you evaluate iterative designs in the absence of users? And the answer is we don't want to. We've been kind of guerrilla testing in what we can, but the idea is one thing I mentioned is we're going to more formalized user testing. There's been like interviews walking into a couple things. I wouldn't describe it as formal user testing, and that's what we want to be doing more on, is the more formalized user testing. Because it's like one thing to say, oh yeah, well I probably would have done that if they've actually done it. And by the way, sidebar there is putting together training materials for the company, because sometimes product managers or other folks are running these, and they have to know how to control for bias, they have to know how to write scripts so that they're not kind of leading the user into what they want them to do. And it's not on purpose, it's a skill like any other, and so design is such a great opportunity to share kind of best practices around user testing with the organization, if you're not always doing it. One more back. Hey. Yeah. So the question is that when I showed that kind of warning of the HIPAA, data types. Sure. So an organization sets up rules as to what information needs to be encrypted or not. And so if you work in a hospital and you kind of send a message like that and it says, hey, HIPAA says you have to encrypt this information, there's going to be a pretty strong, and quite honestly, and this comes back to design, right? Designs we're working on, right? That thing I showed you, you can't actually send it without encrypting. It looks like you could send it without encrypting, you can't. You hit send, it's going to say, wow, you really don't encrypt this. After I hit send, you really don't encrypt this. Not a great experience, right? But the idea would be, if I work in a hospital, I know what HIPAA is, but it's telling me, oh, shoot, I put a patient's chart in here, and you get encrypted up there. But yeah, to your point, yeah, signal to noise problem, right? Where's that sweet spot of like letting someone know when something's happening, but I don't want to always be in their face or else they're going to start thinking of it. Absolutely. There's one more and then I'm done. Yes, sir. Hey. Yeah, so on-site, kind of getting out in the wild and doing on-site interviews and just like watching Facebook and use the product. Doing a lot of data research, like really digging into how our product is being used, a lot of data studies, a lot more user testing, which I've been talking about, and what else are we talking about? And what's funny is that it's kind of internal research, but this whole service blueprint process is really interesting of like understanding how the organization works and how these teams are talking to each other. It's kind of like internally facing projects. That's been kind of neat too. So lots more. It's a really exciting space. With that, I'll leave off there. Guys, thank you very much. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for listening.